Welcome to the Breath of Fresh Air Dental Podcast. Whether you're a seasoned practice owner, a new dentist, or an office manager looking to enhance your skills, this podcast is for you. Our friendly and knowledgeable hosts are here to answer your burning questions, address common pain points, and provide practical solutions to help you overcome any obstacles you may face. Our hosts, Amanda Demora and Sarah Hamlin, bring to the table lengthy careers in both clinical dentistry and practice administration. They now preside as the CEO and COO of Essential Dental Services.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Demora.
And I'm Sarah Hamlin.
And welcome to the Breath of Fresh Air podcast. So today we're talking about when it's time to consider outsourcing and what you should ask your outsourcing company.
Obviously a topic that's kind of near and dear to our hearts.
Yes. Yep. This is kind of our lifeblood. And, whether it's our company or another, I think these are just kind of all valid points and questions to go over. But before we jump in, Sarah, what are you up to this weekend? Any soccer jamborees?
No, thank goodness. Is that what's on your docket?
Not a jamboree, but soccer, yes.
It is super rainy and cold. This is like, I'm in the Pacific Northwest and we are in our trudging months, I call them, because the time from April-ish to like October here like fully makes up for these really crummy months, but January and February, sometimes into March, is just hard. Our forecast is just 14 days of straight rain, clouds, no sun in sight. So we are working through that, but that just means a lot of inside time for us. And I don't really know. I don't think we have anything exciting on the schedule. My kids have been really into bowling lately as a good indoor task. So maybe we'll hit the lanes, might be looking into a little ladies league night for myself. Got to get some hobbies going here.
Yeah, you do need some hobbies. we talked about that a couple episodes ago, right?
Yeah.
No one has hobbies anymore.
Right. And I'm not gardening in this weather, so I got to do the next best thing, which is bowling.
I would say a weekend with no plans sounds like the best weekend ever. So I was saying the other day that January, you start the year off with all these resolutions and plans and goals. And oftentimes, obviously, a lot of that's like fitness and cheeriness and all this stuff. But I know the weather where you are and I'm in Massachusetts, so like the weather is just trash. It's like not really a good time to commit to like this mindset change.
Yeah. Well, I think we're nearing on what week 3 of the year. This is probably like where most people give up on their resolutions at this point. Like they gave it the good old college try for 3 weeks. And now we're at the point where everybody's like realizing that wasn't a feasible goal.
I'm still going strong with some of them. I haven't quite necessarily started yet, but we'll get there.
There's still plenty of year left. Don't worry about it.
Well, one of them was to do more puzzles and less TV.
Okay.
Nothing like resolution about puzzles.
I think that's great. I too have been trying to stay off the TV and my phone a little bit more. So I've been trying to do more reading. I did finish my first book of the year yesterday, so I got to pick a new one to start now.
Yes, you do. I was actually just telling someone last night that I've been on too long of a break from reading because I'm just always just getting in podcasts. Like that's it. I've just binging podcasts lately. So getting back into some books, even if they're beach reads, I think I need to.
Yep.
All right. So back to today's topic. When it's time to consider outsourcing. So what would be one of the reasons or the first reason to consider outsourcing?
Well, do we want to maybe start too by saying that outsourcing is not for everyone? And so if you feel like outsourcing is maybe not a good fit for your office, like that's okay. I don't know. Do you want to touch, Amanda, on maybe like sometimes when you think outsourcing is probably not a good idea for an office first, and then we can launch in?
I think people get surprised when I say this because they're like, wait a minute. Shouldn't you just be like preaching about outsourcing all the time? And no, so I think the biggest thing is we need the outsourcing company, not just we, but we need to be able to have a contact person that we have good communication with at the office. And we have struggled with this with some clients. I'm just going to be upfront and honest here. And the office is struggling too. I mean, they just don't have the staff there. Like, they literally don't have staffing to rely on to have a contact person. So, they're kind of like grasping at straws a little bit. But that gets problematic because when you're outsourcing, you have remote team members or whatever it is, there are going to be questions that need to be answered by the office and some little problems that are going to need to be solved. So if there's no one in the office to do that for us, or if communication is really sparse, we start running into trouble. So that, if you sense that that's happening in your office, you might not be the best fit. And if you are the doctor owner, maybe that person needs to be you, but you kind of have to step up to the plate there. And we do have clients whom it is the doctor. It's a small startup or just a small practice in general, and the doctor's kind of hands-on with a lot of that stuff. They just sort of have to step up to the plate and be the contact person there.
Yeah.
So
I think that that's kind of a common misconception of outsourcing too, is that that your outsourced company in whatever capacity, not just in dental billing, but in any capacity, is going to be like a set it and forget it kind of situation. And I think that that's probably not great for your business in general if you're kind of like hiring somebody or starting something and then just taking a completely hands-off approach, but also probably, like Amanda's saying, unrealistic as well. You're not setting the outsourcing company up for success, and you're not setting yourself up for success either if you're trying to just get it going and then never look at it or touch it or check in on it again.
Right. I'm trying to think of some other reasons that you might not be ideal to outsource. One of the things that I came across once, this office did not turn into a client and really couldn't have, is their doctor wasn't making notes for a week. So now that is problematic for many reasons, but for selfish reasons of the billing company, we just can't be sending claims and narratives for things that aren't documented. So that is an issue.
I think another thing to consider, or another thing I might think of bringing up, is if you are a doctor or potentially an office manager who is extremely particular, or you have some certain systems or processes that are specific to your office that are very important to you, that are kind of non-negotiable to you, and you require all of your staff and everybody to do those or adhere to those. Sometimes outsourcing can be hard for those offices with really stringent policies and procedures kind of like that in place, or expectations maybe, just because there is a level of, not lack of control, but they're not, an outsourced company really isn't your employee at the end of the day. And so you getting to kind of dictate some of those things which might be important to you, you might not have as much ability to do that with an outsourced company. So just kind of taking a look at your approach to those things, or the things that you find important or are a priority, and trying to decide if an outsourced company could fit into those is a good thing to think about too.
Kind of rolling off that a little bit. This is one of our tangents that we like to get on. But anyway, I think that's important to note about outsourcing is sometimes we've had clients who really start kind of viewing us as a remote employee, and they're wanting to boss us around a bit and demand that we are there certain hours. And I think you have to know and also remember that these are not employees. This is a service that you are hiring and entrusting to get the job done right. And, we have our own systems, proven systems that we have set in place that have taken years to perfect. in the same breath, I also really try to keep this a little customizable to the practice too. Of course, we want to do things the way you want things done. And of course, there is room for customizing, but we have like a framework, I guess, is what I'd call it for all of our services. So then we just tweak them a little bit to each client. But I also remember a phone call where the office was wanting us to follow up on claims after 10 days of submission. So,
what's the point? Why?
They wanted us to be on those like way before 30 days. And that gets hard with software and sometimes these things just aren't realistic. So setting expectations, we talk about that a lot.
One thing I just thought of too, kind of similarly, is if you're doing something in your practice that you may have heard is illegal or frowned upon, in the dental billing circles or in whatever circle we're talking about outsourcing in, if you know you're doing something questionable and you as the business owner choose to have that be the course of action that you're still considering to take for your office, understand, I think reasonably, that your outsourcing company might not be on the same page about doing things in a questionable way. So just being aware, and if you're doing something that is frowned upon and you don't know that it's frowned upon, and then your outsourcing company brings that up, that's a different thing. But if you're already aware of it and you're choosing to do it anyway, just expect that your outsourcing company might bring something to light for you.
Yep. Both of those things happen all the time. I think when we start with clients, we see a lot or point out a lot. I mean, there are many offices who are doing things perfectly as they
above
should.
board.
Right. And some who just are none the wiser, and that's fine. But correct, we have our resources and guides that we follow in terms of legal advice, and we don't bend those for other advice that people are finding on the dark web. So
Okay, so we know why outsourcing might not be for you, but now let's go into what situations might you be in that would be reasons that you would consider outsourcing. I think the first and probably the most common one that at least I hear on conversations with potential new clients is that you can't hire. You're having trouble hiring. And obviously there's many reasons why you might be having trouble hiring, but first is obviously you can't find a qualified applicant. We all know that dental offices and I think employers across the board right now are kind of struggling to find good quality team members. So if you're, have been in this process for a while and you can't find somebody that's a good fit, or kind of tying into, something that I have a little lower on our list too, is if you're having a lot of turnover, you're burning through staff, you get somebody in there, they don't last, you're getting somebody else in there. Like that can be a really exhausting process, as Amanda and I both know. And at some point you just realize that you're kind of beating your head against the wall with it and it's not working for what you guys need at the office. Then outsourcing can be a really great alternative to that, revolving door of hiring, firing, training, all of the exhausting parts that come with it.
Right. I've talked to some clients before whom they're like, I hire someone, I train them, 3 months later, they leave. And then they just keep repeating that. And in that process, what's happening? Claims are getting missed, claims are way outstanding, and things are just really starting to fall through the cracks. So
Yep. The next part of kind of you can't hire is, again, we see a lot of clients in this position too. Your current staff is great. You love them. They're doing their jobs, but they're kind of maxed out on workload, and financially or physically in your office, you don't have the space to bring on another admin member or, wherever you're outsourcing. But for purposes of our combo, we'll assume it's a dental billing company. So you don't have the space. You don't have a workstation. You don't have a spot to put another person up at the front, or financially you can't swing another person on payroll for you, but you have too much workload to kind of your front desk staff is drowning. So I think outsourcing can kind of offer a good middle ground for that. Still getting some work done, doesn't cost near as much as having an employee come on, doesn't cost you the time and money and energy to get that person onboarded and hired and trained and all of that stuff. So it can kind of be a good middle ground for taking load off of current team members, but not hiring a new one. I think Amanda, will have to corroborate my knowledge, but I believe that the kind of current industry standard recommendation for your admin team is usually between like 7 and 8% of your collection should be admin payroll costs. So you can kind of use that to judge where you're at and know, could you absorb more payroll costs for admin team or not? But something to kind of look at for numbers wise where you're at and where you might want to be workload wise too.
Yep, I still think that kind of stands true. And even if I think offices should be looking at that number kind of regularly because, I mean, could everyone get a little bit of a raise and you also hire a remote company to do some of this? That's a good tactic.
Yep. Kind of related to workload too, I think the next part of you can't hire is that maybe you have a big project or your outstanding insurance list is out of control or your patient AR has just blown up and you don't have the staff ability to kind of get that project tackled or under control. Outsourcing to kind of help, even with special projects like that, can be helpful. Even if it doesn't turn into a long-term relationship with an outsourcing company, that's certainly something that outsourcing companies take on, is tackling that, getting that list under control, and then you're back to just kind of keeping your systems in place after that.
We see this with practice sales and acquisitions. Before a practice is getting ready to sell, they might want to get that AR cleaned up so they get a better price on the practice. And, maybe if that didn't happen, the new doctor that bought the practice is in a little bit of a mess.
Yep.
And they've got all these outstanding claims and they purchased the AR at whatever percentage they did, and they want to see a return on that. So those are a couple things we see.
Yep. Last on this kind of like hiring situation is that maybe you don't necessarily need to hire, but you have some concerns or questions about like the quality of work or the quantity of work that's being done by your current staff. I think this also tends to happen a lot in the acquisitions kind of transfer situations is, a new doctor buys a practice, keeps the staff on board, which is great, but maybe has some questions or concerns about how things are being done, wants to train this staff to do things the way that the new doctor would prefer. And so while that's happening or, whatever, while that process is happening, the bills still need to get paid, the payments still need to get posted, claims still need to get sent. So considering outsourcing in that situation instead of upsetting the current staff or whatever that case may be is a good option too.
Absolutely. All right, next, we did you can't hire. Now, what if you can't train?
So again, I think there's several reasons you might be in this boat where you can't train. First one would just be you don't necessarily have the knowledge and or the time to be able to train your staff. If you are a doctor in this situation where you don't necessarily have an office manager who's kind of taking over these duties, do you as the doctor feel super comfortable and confident in your knowledge of dental billing to be able to be the one to kind of step in and help train a new staff member? I would say probably in a majority of the cases of doctors that I know, they aren't really the ones to train the staff members up front. What do you think, Amanda?
My immediate thought was I never liked training.
Yeah. It's not fun, I don't think.
No. I mean, there are definitely people who do like it, and that is what they do.
Yeah.
But not me. I like fine-tuning skills, but I like when people come to me and they're already trained.
Yeah.
So that was my first thought. But also, maybe there's no one on your staff to properly train them. And we see that quite a bit.
Yep.
So that's another reason. And then if you're not sure that things are being done well because you don't even know what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
We see this with doctors who have never pulled a report before, or they're brand new. They don't know what it should look like. There's a lot that kind of goes into that. So
Yep.
if you're not quite sure what you're looking at and you want to pass this off to people who do, the industry experts, then this might be a wise decision.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think I kind of touched on this, a minute ago, but if you are kind of going through some big upheaval with your staff or some big retraining with your staff, and you're needing them to be able to focus their time and energy on learning new things or going to a conference or, taking some online course or whatever the case may be, if that is going to take their time and energy away from posting payments, submitting claims, following up on outstanding claims, then using an outsourcing company, even in the interim, while your in-office staff gets trained up or gets, a refresher on whatever, that's a good time to consider using an outsourcing company too, to just kind of fill in those gaps for you and make sure that things are still happening while the changes are happening in the office too.
Next reason would be, and you need consistency. And we just kind of talked about this a little bit with staff turnover. There's no consistency when that happens and things start to be missed.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing, even if you do kind of have an insurance coordinator in the office, but they're the only ones who know how to post payments and the only ones who know anything about insurance, when they're on vacation, what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
No one's posting anything. When something unexpected happens, what happen? They're, God forbid, in an accident or something like that. You never know. Then you're kind of stuck. So this kind of alleviates that because there's no. I mean, our team members do take vacation, but your service will not be disrupted by that because we have some backups and things. But there's no vacation. There's no weeks that are going by where things aren't happening. So this fills in those gaps and just alleviates that whole burden altogether.
Yeah. Or for planned things, vacations, but also like maternity leave. We cover quite a few maternity leaves for offices to just make sure that, things are running smoothly, but then the, staff member still has a job to come back to when they come back.
Yep.
Also, one thing I was thinking of consistency too, is that I've run into this with a couple of our clients. If there's not super well outlined job duties at the front in the office, and there are kind of multiple people posting payments, multiple people trying to submit and follow up on claims, there's a lot of hands in the pot, a lot of cooks in the kitchen. That can lead to inconsistencies as well. Some offices find it easier just to kind of take it off of everyone's plate and give it to outside party, third party source, instead of trying to divvy up tasks or handle tasks in that way to take it away from an office staff and maybe cause some resentments or issues up front. So inconsistencies can happen that way, even if they're getting done and even if everybody knows how to do it. If there's a lot of people doing it, it can be kind of different from every person.
Okay, so you've decided that you are going to take it off of everyone's plate. That kind of leads to our next point, which is you need stronger patient care. So to me, it was because I have been in this position myself. When you're up at the front office and, you have someone who doesn't necessarily have their own dedicated computer and back office to be doing all this. They're up at the front. They're posting checks. They're knee deep in insurance calls and also trying to check people in and out and have genuine conversations and be making connections with your patients. That gets tricky.
Mm-hmm.
And patients notice that too. They're like, oh, wow, they're really buried deep in this paperwork here.
Yep. Well, or from the flip side, from somebody who has been in positions like that too, I think it's easy for other team members and patients both to think that because we are sitting here looking at our computer, that means we're not busy or not in the middle of something.
Hmm.
But if you've ever posted a bulk EFT, EOB payment with 50 patients on it and there's all these reason codes for denials and yada, yada, yada. You've got 10 screens pulled up and you're really deep into this payment. You are busy and your brain is somewhere else, and, focusing on the staff member that comes up to talk to you about something, or the patient who just walked out of the bathroom and wants to chat about their vacation to the Bahamas, that can be a really hard brain switch, first of all. And second of all, it can actually be really, detrimental to the work that the insurance person is doing. It can distract them from it, can make numbers not match. It can make things get posted inaccurately. So it's a really hard balance that a lot of offices struggle with. And it can definitely be a good reason to consider outsourcing.
I think sometimes doctors and office managers and directors of operation, whatever it may be, they do kind of get this idea like, well, I need someone at the desk to answer phones and be posting payments and all this. And that's tough. Honestly, it's really tough to offer quality patient care, because what happens when, you're posting that 50-page EFT and then you're off a cent?
Yep. Yeah.
You feel like you're so buried in it that you want to figure it out. You want to get it done. And, maybe that person's not so willing to have that conversation with the patient who wants to talk about going to the Bahamas. You want to get back to your work and make sure it's done by the time you need to leave and all of that stuff. So,
yeah. And how much more likely is that person is much more likely to be rushed in a treatment plan presentation, or, keeping things really short and sweet to get the patient out the door so they can get back to trying to figure out their math on this. So I think, deciding what your priorities are in your office. And we get a lot of doctors or a lot of offices that come on with us that just have decided that they really need to prioritize the patient in the office or the patients on the phone, and that the kind of bookkeeping, computer work stuff that can be handled offsite should be handled offsite. So that's a great way to utilize an outsourcing company too.
So we've made our case here of why outsourcing is so valuable. If an office is deciding to outsource, we want to talk a little bit about maybe some questions you should ask that outsourcing company. And I do think that people should talk to a few. So what would be some questions that someone should ask a prospective company?
I think the first and foremost thing is making sure that you as a client of the outsourcing company are protected. And also, just like the outsourcing company wants to make sure that you're doing things legally and above board, you should make sure that your outsourcing company is doing the same. At the end of the day, especially when it comes to billing and stuff, like the work that the outsourcing company does directly affect your patients. It could directly affect how you look to your patients, how you come across to them when things are being posted accurately and correctly. So really doing your research and vetting these companies to make sure that you want them representing you and working for you is key. The first thing that I kind of have on our list here is to make sure that you're asking if your outsourcing company has access to patient information, to PHI, of course, like how is this patient information used? How is it accessed? How is it protected? And then, of course, making sure that you're getting a business associate agreement signed with your outsourcing company as well. They should be offering and or giving you one to sign too. It should be both parties should be interested in having that done. So if that is never brought up, then that would be a big red flag for sure.
Yes. And in addition to that, so we obviously do the BAA and service agreement. After that, you should be asking how they're accessing your software and your patient information. So by what means are they doing this, and what level of security is going on here? So a little behind the scenes for us, we use a HIPAA compliant remote software that it's pretty prevalent in the IT world. So kind of built for security there. And we have I think you should also ask, like, what level of protection is there should anything happen. So, cybersecurity insurance, errors and omissions insurance, like your company should have all of these things, general business insurance. And then, most remote companies, they have their workers all over the country. So what are they doing at home? So all of our team is required to be on a secure, stable internet connection, not a public Wi-Fi, and have their own dedicated like computer and login strictly for this work. So you're not like sharing with your personal login or any personal stuff. It's all like dedicated to this. So you can't be at the ice skating rink watching your kids play hockey while you're on public Wi-Fi. That's just a no.
Yeah.
So that's an important question is, what level of security is going on here? We've seen some major breaches lately. Obviously, Henry Schein, many dental offices getting hacked. That's been pretty big. So questions to ask.
Yeah. And just do what you can to, protect yourself and protect your patient information. I mean, at the end of the day, you are, you're advocating for yourself and for your business. So asking these questions is not only important, I think it should be, a no-brainer for you when you're considering outsourcing.
Yes. Next is what to do if you have a problem. So ask your company, if there is a problem, who am I reaching out to? Am I submitting a support ticket and waiting for someone to get back to me? Am I sending an email to the person who's working on my account? Am I sending an email to someone else? Am I calling a phone number? I think many companies do kind of go that support ticket route. We do not. So every client of ours has one or two account managers who are dedicated to that account. And your first line of defense is reaching out to them directly. And you're going to get a very fast response.
Yes.
That way. And then we have some escalation routes from there, of course, reaching out to Sarah and me. But someone is going to get back to you quick.
Yep.
But
knowing
ask that question.
Yes, knowing what to do or how to handle it in case something goes wrong, because inevitably those things always do go wrong at 5 p.m. on a Friday when, the patient's standing in front of you and you're trying to figure something out. It's good to know what route you need to go before you have to go it.
Yep.
The next question too is, who is going to be working directly with our office, or what software is going to be working directly with our office? Who's in control of that software? What kind of experience do they have? Where are they located? How do I communicate with them? That's, I get that question a lot from our clients, which I think is great. They all want to know, like, how do I get in touch with the person who I'm going to be working with? And knowing those avenues again ahead of time, because for sure your account manager or whoever is, assigned to your account specifically, you should be in communication with them regularly. So making sure that that's ironed out and easy for you. A lot of our clients like to use email, but some of them prefer to communicate by Google Chat or Slack or Microsoft Teams. There's a lot of communication options these days. And so just making sure everyone's on the same page about what option works and which is preferred, and also which should be checked regularly. From, I think, both sides of the aisle, we need to know that the office is checking those things regularly, and the office needs to know that we're checking those things regularly too, so that communication can happen and be efficient.
I think as a default, we use email, but for our offices or our clients that are using some kind of internal messaging system like Slack, we are more than happy to be added to that and use your kind of default method of communication. So if that's easier for everyone, that's easier for us too. Asking, what their experience is and where they're located. I think that's very, very important to me. Obviously, that is what this company has been built on, is experience. For us, I talk about this all the time, but everyone has to have been a practice manager for at least 7 years, or a revenue cycle manager. That is among many other standards, but that is like our bar. And not every company has that. They all kind of have different levels of requirements, and some may on the job train, some might not, some are located in other countries. So those are all, if they're important to you, those are important questions to ask.
Mhm.
If those things are not important to you, that is totally fine too. And you're going to find a company that aligns with exactly what you need.
Yep. The other thing that I think is important to ask is how you're being billed. When are you being billed? What does it happen on a certain day of the month? Is it a yearly subscription type situation? Is your card charged automatically? Do you have to call and make a payment? Do you have to mail in a check? Like there's, we shouldn't necessarily have to go into this too much as a business owner or as an office manager. I'm sure you're already paying bills. I'm sure you understand that every company has a different kind of statement cycle or the way that they do it, but just making sure that you touch base with your outsourcing company about that. What I have seen happen, not with us specifically, but in other situations, is like working with a company who bills like quarterly. So you go like 3 months and you didn't pay and you're like, what the heck? And then you get a huge bill because they bill quarterly. So surprise, like, just making sure that you've kind of touched on that and understand too, like, where is your credit card information being stored? That kind of just general good banking and financial sense. Those are good questions to ask too. And any experienced outsourcing company or reputable outsourcing company from any type should have those answers and should have a secure way of doing that for you.
Yes, for sure. The last thing here that you should ask is what's expected of you, the office. What is expected of you during this whole process? And I talked about this at the very beginning, but having someone that we can contact, I mean, that's the most important thing to me, is some kind of timely communication.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you ask that question so that you know what the outsourcing company is expecting from you. And if you can't meet those expectations or like that's unrealistic for you or your office to be able to meet those expectations, then yep, I guess outsourcing or at least outsourcing with that company is probably not a good fit for you right at this time. So you're not going to know that, and you don't want to go through the hassle and effort of getting onboarded and signed up and maybe into some kind of contract or something with this company and then realize like, oh man, I can't keep up with what they need from me. So good to ask that ahead of time and kind of have a firm understanding of what's being expected or needed from you for the process to run smoothly.
And then you can set yourself up for success that way. Like, what is on the table right from the beginning. So a common phone call or a question asked when Sarah and I are talking to potential new clients is, okay, how quickly can we get started? Now, this is my response. I say, the average amount of time from the date that you say, yes, we're ready, to the date we are starting is about 3 weeks. That can often be sooner, but it's usually not. And that is usually because the client has taken a lot of time to do certain things, like sign the BAA. Or click the link to download the remote software. For some reason, these just always take a long time to do. And they could all be knocked out in like a half hour.
An afternoon, yes. That's what I tell clients, almost every single client that I talk to on the phone, prospective clients, how quickly can we start services? I always say, well, it's up to you.
Yes.
If you are motivated, because that is true. If an office is truly motivated to get this handled and set up, it could be done in an afternoon very easily. And I have seen it be done in an afternoon by an office, in fact. So I know that it can be done in an afternoon, but Amanda's exactly right. It takes some time to get these wheels a turning, to get this train a moving down the tracks.
Yes.
So, and that's fine too. I hope that our clients who might be listening or anybody listening, we understand that and we respect that and we're happy to move at the speed that you want to. But yeah, it's funny when people think that we're the ones holding up the onboarding process because it's not usually the case.
No, we're usually like ready to attack. But again, like Sarah said, I totally know what it's like to be a busy practice manager. And if downloading like remote software is not on your priority list for that day and you're doing a bunch of other stuff, that's just what happens. But I mean, we're just there waiting. We're ready when you are.
Yep.
So I think that wraps up today. And I hope that those are like some good tips and you just so you can gauge if you're ready to outsource. If you are, what that means, what might be required of you, questions to ask a potential company, and hopefully that was very insightful for everyone listening.
Yeah. And I think if you guys have other questions about the outsourcing process or you're kind of considering it in a general standpoint, not really sure how or what you could outsource for your office, you have questions, like reach out in the comments, reach out, send us an email on LinkedIn. I know I've put that out there before, but we're happy to answer these questions and help you guys as much as possible. So if you are listening and you have a question that we didn't touch on or something that you're wondering about, use us as a resource. We're happy to share what we know or what we've learned from years of doing this and working with many, many clients. So yeah, reach out if you have other questions that we didn't touch on too.
We also, I totally forgot to mention, but for our offices who are teetering back and forth, they're trying to fill in the gaps. They're trying to, keep this internal and have some more training resources. We have a bunch in our digital resource library, how to tackle outstanding claims, a long AR list, code specific things like core buildups, orthodontic billing training guides, all kinds of stuff on our website for you guys to help or rebuild your systems or perfect your systems in office. So that is an option too, and we'll link those in our show notes. But that is it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Yeah, thanks guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.